I, Antonio Longo, had just graduated from culinary college and just got hired as an assistant in the top 10 best 4-star restaurants in the city. It was a dream come true for me. I had always wanted to work at a restaurant. I loved creating something that people would enjoy eating. It brought a sense of satisfaction in me. That was what urged me in enrolling in the culinary school in the first place. So getting a job at one of the best 4-star restaurants felt like a golden opportunity for me to cash in on and make my dreams become a reality. But it all soon proved to be too good to be true. As in, it did not end up being true at all. In my case, at any rate. Because even when I had gotten the work in such an amazing place, I wasn't doing what I wanted to do there. I wasn't allowed any of the experimentation on the recipes that I was very much a fan of. In fact, I was not even cooking much there. It was mostly a helper's position that I had got going for me there. It was anything but satisfactory. So I decided to let that go and stopped working at the restaurant. If I was not going to get any recognition in my own field and I had to do just menial work, I could very well do it somewhere else. That too without compromising my passion in the process. After 2 years of working odd jobs here and there and proper encouragement from my family members back in Boston, I was ready to take the next big step. I had picked up cookbooks from my favorite master chefs from all around the world and added my own little twist to them, creating some of my own signature dishes. It was my beginning towards my own business. Now, skip to 5 years later. I was still working part-time, but this time for my very own, very popular catering business. My catering business had really taken off over the years, so much so that I found myself booked up for the next 3 months at least, and the orders still kept coming in. Over the years, people had started picking up on my recipes, and chief among them was my famous cheesecake recipe. It was often ordered for weddings, and the people ordering these cheesecakes were mostly from the weddings I had last hosted, which meant that the taste of my food stayed with people long after they had tasted it. It brought on a lot of recognition for me and my catering business. Another thing it brought along was money. In fact, over the years, this business had raised enough capital for me to open my own restaurant, and that too in the heart of uptown Franklin Lane that housed what could only be considered the newest, trendiest after-dark hangouts in the city. And that was why I was working only part-time at the catering business. I had hired most of the man-force to deal with the different facets of that business, and the people managing it were competent enough that I did not have to worry much. I only did the baking and stuff for now. Most of my worry and my time was directed at my new venture now. It took about 4 months just to develop the idea and the aesthetic behind the restaurant. I wanted to add my own personal vision as well as the practicality into the ambiance. I really wanted my restaurant to be a place that will wow the customers with the taste and the social experience, a place they would never really forget. Soon enough, the whole restaurant was set up and ready to run. It was one of the most buzzworthy openings of not just the week, the month. People had already started booking the place even before the restaurant was actually opened. Its first day in business was going to be a blast. I just knew it. It was my years of hard work paying off. It created so much buzz that even the local news caught wave of it and covered it. There were stories of my local success as a small-town caterer to a well-known chef that everyone heard around town on his opening night. The grand opening did, in fact, end up being a huge success. It drew in very big numbers. Add to that the media coverage, and it was a sight to behold. Being interviewed on the local news just weeks before the opening gave me all the free press that I needed and then some. We actually almost ran out of some of the ingredients and dishes there, and it just went uphill from then on. Business was doing great, and the traffic created online with guests posting their favorite dishes made more people curious on booking reservations and trying everything themselves. And no one left disappointed. So, all in all, I had made my dream of owning a successful and happy restaurant come true. A year later, I knew it was time to give myself a break from the continuous hard work I was doing for so many years. So I stepped down from being the master chef and appointed other chefs that I had personally trained to take over the cooking department. I myself decided to be a part-time manager. It would allow me to keep an eye on the running of things, as well as leave me more time to relax and enjoy the moments away from the business. Life could not get any better for me. So it took a little turn for the worse instead. I got a call from my stepbrother Lamar and his son Ben. It brought many long-forgotten memories to the surface. We grew up very poor in Boston with a helicopter mother and mostly MIA father. Lamar's mother had already died, so after graduating from school, he decided to join the army, leaving me to take care of the brunt of it, stuck with my on-again and off-again father. I had moved after the death of my mother and had broken all sort of communication with that side of the family, including Lamar, who I heard had gotten back from the military, gotten married and later divorced, and was now a father of a son who was as much a trouble as he once was, all while I was setting up my business and my future. He told me that he had just picked up a job nearby as a mechanic, and his son had started working in a computer repair shop that just also happened to be nearby. I was no fan of dealing with my brother and his troubled son coming around whenever they needed money or somewhere to crash, because I had gotten the word from some of our relatives that's what they were going around doing. But still, I had them over for dinner that night, and I listened to him talk on and on about opening up his own car repair shop and how hard it was on him financially and such. I knew what he was getting at and trying to subtly but not so subtly hint at. He wanted me to offer him the money and solve all his issues, but I wanted to see if he would just come out in the open and directly ask me for the money he needed to open his so-called business. And he did not disappoint. After going on and on for over an hour, he must have gotten tired of his own tirade and could not wait for my kind offer anymore. So he outright asked for the money in lieu of investment in his business. Knowing he had no background in business and never even knew how to budget his own pension he got from the government, I decided to give in anyway. I did not exactly accept the business venture he offered me. Instead, I just gave him $5,000. I knew he was going to blow his money on his next trying to get rich scheme in Vegas. I would never be seeing that $5K ever again, let alone hoping for any return on investment. But still, for old time's sake, I decided to be generous. I could tell that he was not happy with that turn of events. He was not there for just $5,000. He wanted me to fully finance his business, and that would measure up to 5 to 6 figures of money. But he did not show any displeasure and thanked me for the help. They promised to come around more often and be in touch now that we were living close by, before saying goodbye and leaving my place. Later that night, I got up around 4 that morning, puking my guts out and trying to remember what could I have eaten that night that was causing me this much discomfort. Nothing popped up in my mind. No allergens were ingested as far as I knew, and I sure as hell had not eaten any spoiled food. I would definitely be able to tell if I had. So, on seeing no apparent reason for this rapid onslaught of vomit accompanied by nausea and stomachache, I checked myself in the hospital and had the doctor try to diagnose me. He was also unable to see any apparent cause for my sudden sickness, so he wanted to keep me at the hospital overnight to run some tests and see if there was some serious underlying issue for it or not. That meant I would have been unable to make it to the restaurant in time. So I reached out to my brother Lamar, asking him to open the restaurant for my staff so they could start on today's opening. I would have later joined them after the test reports had come back. But that quickly flew out the window, because when the test results came back, the doctors still could not find anything that could have caused my sickness. That just meant more tests and more studies, so he just put me on bed rest until he could see my blood work and get to the root cause of my stomach upset. It went on for 3 days. I stayed in the hospital for 3 days. And for these last 3 days, Lamar had been watching over the restaurant for me, opening it and closing it, and generally keeping a track of everything happening in there until I could get back on my feet. After 3 long days, the doctor released me from bed rest and told me that apparently there was nothing wrong with my body and its bodily functions. They had ruled out every possible cause and found none to be. In the end, he said, it might just have been a stomach bug going around. He suggested me to take it easy and get some more rest, but I felt fine, so I decided to head to work as soon as the complete bed rest phase was over. I called Lamar and told him I was fine now and would be back to work tomorrow, so he did not have to come to the restaurant anymore. He didn't say much in response other than an okay and hung up on me. I figured he was busy, probably closing up the restaurant, and didn't think much of it. The next day, I was back at work, as decided. What was not decided, however, was Lamar was still coming to the restaurant along with Ben. Lamar called me in my office, and I figured maybe he had something important to tell me, so I followed along. It turned out he was still just trying to get money from me. Just enough to open up his shop, he said. I refused to do so. He even went as far as emotionally blackmailing me into doing so, referring to how helpful he had been in my time of need, but I had figured out by then that it was all a ploy of his, so I didn't budge. We went back and forth arguing until he slammed his fist into my desk, yelling, I looked after you and your work when you were down, and now that you are well and good, you want to shut me out? The hell with you and your damn restaurant, you asshole! They both walked out of my office yelling and cussing, knocking the plates and dishes out of the servers' hands as they went. It had caused a huge commotion that had taken me a lot of time to settle and calm. Later that night, I was counting out the earnings for the week. I looked into my account and had to do a double take at what I was seeing. I had only $5,000 in the business account. I could not believe my eyes. I decided to go over to my bank and see if there was some issue in there. I hurriedly walked out of my Porsche and saw graffiti spray painted across the hood of my car and down the side of my doors. I knew that it was something I had seen before. It reminded me of my brother's old childhood days when he would get in trouble for spraying graffiti on the walls in our neighborhood. Everything clicked in my head at once. I felt a rush of anger that I had never felt before. I ran back in to grab my bat and raced over to my brother's house, wanting to break my bat across his damn head. As soon as I reached there and got out of the car, I charged towards the door of the house he was renting, anger making my blood boil and my head pound. I was just about to open the door when I heard voices coming from the inside. The few words I could hear floating over were enough to make me halt in my steps and retract my outstretched hands that were ready to bang on the door and fling it open. Useless! Alive! Poison! The words were unusual enough to give me a pause. There seemed to be a serious topic under discussion inside the house, and my sixth sense had me feeling that it somehow concerned me. I needed to hear what the hell they were talking about before actually barging in, so I looked around and hurried towards the open window a couple feet away from me that was the source of all these voices escaping the house. How the fuck was I supposed to know that those pills wouldn't work on him? It was the shouting of Ben, my nephew. You were supposed to make sure that worked, you useless scum! How hard can poisoning someone be? That was my brother talking. Very! If you wanted to go unnoticed, it is very fucking hard, father! Ben spat back. At that point, I could guess what they were talking about. I just refused to believe it. Huh. What's even the use of taking this much care and poisoning him when he's still not even dead? We were supposed to kill and get rid of my dear brother before cleaning up his account. And now he's alive and well and back to work, lamented Lamar. Well, our main purpose was getting the money, right, father? And we got it. So what even is the issue now? Yes, but if he was dead, no one would know we took the money. But now that he's alive, won't we get caught? Questioned Lamar. His tone had now turned a bit worried instead of just angry. How? He doesn't even know it was us. It could be anyone, Ben carelessly replied, already getting busy with his computer. Are you for real? I know my brother and he's not that stupid. He will match the dots in a minute and know it was us. Lamar's worries were not abated. But can he prove it? Ben smirked. No one can trace it back to us. Even if I failed in successfully killing him, I can never fail in removing any traces on the web. Besides, he doesn't even know that I put pills in his drink and tried to kill him. So just relax, man. He seemed really sure of himself that no one would be able to catch him, and very proud of it too. The conversation between them died out after that. Both of them went back to their own devices as if they weren't at each other's throats just a while ago. And I knew I could not just keep standing there rooted at the window. No matter how in shock and in disbelief I was, I had to get moving if I did not want to be found out. It was only a matter of time before one of them came outside. My shock was very justified too. We both had our differences, but I never would have imagined that it would go this far. No matter how much I despised my brother, I would never even think of killing him. He, on the other hand, had no qualms in doing so for his own benefit. What was I supposed to do after finding out this information? What could I even do after finding out that my own nephew had spiked my drink with some pills, intending to kill me? What could I do on finding out that he had hacked into my computer, stealing the money from my business account? What could I do about my very own stepbrother, who had tried to manipulate me and emotionally blackmail me out of my business? A brother who had taken my hard-earned money from me. I needed to leave that place and think it over. I could not just barge in there after listening to all that. That might just prove to be suicide at that point, because I was sure that if they had tried killing me once, they could very well try once again. And this time, they would not even hold back, because this time I knew all about their truth. So I backed away from the window and the house. I would have to bring about a permanent solution to this before they could have another go at my life. And I needed to get all my money back from them. But Ben was right in one thing. I had no way to prove it was them who were behind everything. So I needed a course of action, and I needed it quick. I called up a few investigators that I knew would take care of my problems and make them go away forever. And they did. My brother Lamar and his son got some new lovers in jail now for the next 15 years.